Welcome back to Q in Charge, your electrifying podcast, where we dive into the heart of innovation, global shifts, and the power of change. I'm Joe the Q, your host, and today's episode is one you won't want to miss. We're exploring a seismic shift that's sending ripples through the global stage, one that could redefine how nations collaborate, compete, and coexist. What does this mean for the world's economies? How might it impact the way we live and work? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. Get ready for a deep dive into a topic that connects energy, geopolitics, and the future of technology. Buckle up, because this is Q in Charge, and we're about to turn up the voltage on understanding the forces shaping our world. The inclusion of Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand into the BRICS framework, along with interest from other Eastern African and Asian countries in similar alliances, marks a turning point in global political and economic dynamics. This episode explores the implications for Western countries, particularly the European Union and the United States, against the backdrop of their dependence on imports from Asia. Through detailed analysis, we investigate motivations for joining BRICS, strategic responses from Western nations, and the evolving nature of global trade. The rise of BRICS as a major economic alliance is reshaping the global order. Emerging economies are realigning their interests and seeking greater autonomy from traditional Western-dominated institutions. This shift is driven by dissatisfaction with current global governance structures and a desire for multipolarity, where multiple centers of power influence global policy. The inclusion of Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand into BRICS is a strategic move that reflects the growing appeal of this alliance for countries seeking economic collaboration and political solidarity outside Western framework. For Western economies, this development signals potential disruptions in their reliance on Asian imports, which underpin critical sectors like manufacturing and technology. Countries like the US and members must prepare to navigate a future where global trade routes and supply chains could be redefined. Proactive adaptation is crucial for maintaining the economic resilience and political influence in this changing landscape. BRICS began as a conceptual grouping in 2001, highlighting the rapid economic growth of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. In 2010, South Africa joined, transforming BRICS into a more geographically diverse alliance. Its evolution to a tangible partnership reflects its members' shared desire for alternatives to Western-dominated systems, such as the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. The inclusion of Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand indicates an acceleration in the bloc's relevance and reach. Indonesia's vast natural resources, Malaysia's industrial capabilities, and Thailand's agricultural and manufacturing strengths add significant economic weight to BRICS. These countries also provide strategic geopolitical positions, facilitating connectivity within Asia and beyond. The expansion solidifies BRICS' position as a counterbalance to Western alliances like NATO, G7. The alliance's ongoing growth demonstrates its ability to attract nations with diverse economic profiles and political priorities, unified by shared objectives of equitable development and sovereignty. Nations aligning with BRICS aim to reduce their reliance on Western markets and institutions. For decades, many economies in Asia, Africa, and Latin America depended heavily on exports to Europe and North America, exposing them to vulnerabilities such as economic sanctions or market downturns in the West. By joining BRICS, countries can foster stronger trade relationships within the alliance, diversifying their economic engagements and reducing risk. This diversification enables these nations to negotiate from a position of strength, balancing Western dependencies with alternative partnerships. The BRICS bloc champions principles of sovereignty, non-interference, and multipolarity. For nations weary of Western political pressures, these values resonate deeply. By joining BRICS, countries gain a platform to advocate for reforms in global governance systems. The bloc's unified stance challenges Western dominance, offering smaller nations a voice in shaping international policies. This appeal is particularly strong among countries that have historically felt marginalized or undermined by traditional Western alliances. Membership in BRICS provides access to financial mechanisms like the New Development Bank, which funds infrastructure and development projects without the conditionalities often imposed by Western institutions. For nations seeking to modernize their economies and infrastructure, the NDB offers a flexible and supportive alternative. This access empowers member countries to pursue projects that align with their development goals while fostering economic growth and regional integration. The expansion of BRICS may lead to stronger intra-bloc trade agreements, reducing reliance on Western markets. For example, China and India, key BRICS members, could intensify trade with new entrants like Indonesia, leveraging complementary resources and industries. As these intra-bloc ties strengthen, Western countries may face reduced demand for their exports. This reconfiguration could force the EU and the US to reassess their trade strategies, prioritizing diversification and competitiveness in sectors where BRICS nations hold less sway. Western economies rely heavily on imports from Asia for manufacturing inputs, electronics, and consumer goods. If BRICS members prioritize trade within the alliance, Western nations could experience supply chain disruptions. Addressing this risk requires building more resilient supply chains through reshoring, nearshoring, or expanding trade partnerships with non-BRICS countries. This transition, while challenging, could also stimulate innovation and domestic manufacturing in the West. The cohesive strategies of BRICS members may weaken Western dominance in international organizations like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. For Western countries, this shift necessitates a recalibration of diplomatic strategies to engage constructively with BRICS nations while maintaining influence in global governance structures. Collaborative approaches rather than confrontational ones may yield better outcomes in this evolving multipolar world. The EU sources significant portions of its goods, particularly electronics and industrial inputs, from Asia. The expansion of BRICS raises concerns about continued access to these critical imports. Should BRICS nations prioritize intra-bloc trade or impose restrictions on exports to Western nations, the EU could face economic shocks. Diversifying trade relations within the EU and expanding partnerships with regions like Africa and South America will be crucial for mitigating these risks. Strategic responses. To safeguard its economic interests, the EU must enhance its industrial autonomy. Investing in technology and renewable energy can reduce reliance on BRICS for critical materials and components. Additionally, fostering collaboration among EU member states can strengthen internal trade networks, creating a more resilient economic bloc capable of withstanding external shock. The US has long relied on trade with BRICS nations, particularly China, for a wide array of goods. The shifting priorities within BRICS may exacerbate the US trade deficit, necessitating policy adjustments. Incentivizing domestic production through subsidies and tax benefits, as outlined in recent congressional energy sector plans, can help reduce reliance on imports. The US must balance its geopolitical interests with the realities of a growing BRICS influence, engaging diplomatically with BRICS nations while strengthening alliances with traditional partners in Europe and Asia can help the US maintain its global leadership role. Supporting multilateral initiatives that address shared global challenges such as climate change could also foster cooperation despite geopolitical tensions. The recent COP29 summit highlighted the need for international cooperation in addressing global energy challenges. Us congressional leaders proposed comprehensive plans to modernize energy infrastructure, emphasizing renewable energy, advanced nuclear power, and hydrogen technology. These initiatives align with global calls for decarbonization and can position the U.S. as a leader in clean energy innovation. Word from our sponsor. There are so many questions and uncertainties, but it is all achievable. Just find the right partners who will provide that help. One of them is the Q Charge. Simply visit www.qcharge123.com. So we suggest you simply download their app today, Q Charge. Powering your journey one charge at a time. Let us continue where we stopped. The COP29 summit underscored the urgent need for global collaboration in addressing energy security and sustainability challenges. In this context, the United States, through its congressional leadership, has laid out ambitious plans to modernize the nation's energy sector while addressing the broader implications of the BRICS expansion. These initiatives reflect a critical intersection of domestic policy, global energy strategy, and geopolitical positioning. COP29 Summit highlights. The summit brought together global leaders to discuss pressing energy challenges, including transitioning to renewable energy, reducing carbon emissions, and ensuring equitable energy access across the world. One key takeaway was the emphasis on energy independence, particularly in regions heavily reliant on imports from BRICS nations. For the US, this was a rallying call to accelerate domestic innovation in energy technologies such as advanced nuclear power, wind, solar, and hydrogen solutions. The summit also highlighted the potential for global partnerships in clean energy projects, emphasizing that cooperation, even with BRICS countries, could yield mutual benefits and mitigate geopolitical tensions. In response, policymakers have proposed a multifaceted strategy to modernize energy infrastructure and reduce dependency on foreign energy imports. Key elements of this plan include investing in renewable energy production, expanding the electric grid to support increased EV adoption, and enhancing energy storage capabilities. Advanced nuclear power, touted for its efficiency and low emissions, is a centerpiece of this strategy with significant funding allocated to next-generation reactors. Hydrogen technology, considered a future cornerstone of global energy systems, is also receiving substantial support through research grants and public-private partnerships. These plans are not merely about addressing domestic energy needs, they are also designed to position the US as a leader in the global clean energy market. By exporting cutting-edge technologies and expertise, the US can strengthen ties with emerging economies, including non-BRICS nations, creating counterbalances to the growing influence of the BRICS bloc. Furthermore, these initiatives demonstrate a commitment to addressing global climate goals, enhancing the U.S. credibility in international negotiations. While BRICS' opportunity as a competitor, the COP29 summit also highlighted areas of potential collaboration. Clean energy projects such as renewable energy installations in underserved regions can serve as neutral ground for cooperation between the U.S. and BRICS countries. By working together on shared challenges like climate change and energy access, both blocs can foster stability and mutual economic growth. Such partnerships could also act as a diplomatic bridge, reducing tensions and building goodwill in a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape. On the domestic front, these energy plans align with the broader goal of economic resilience. By reducing reliance on energy imports, particularly from BRICS nations, the US can strengthen its economic independence and insulate itself from global supply chain disruptions. Simultaneously, these plans serve a geopolitical purpose by positioning the US as a technology leader capable of exporting innovations to allied and emerging economies. This dual approach addresses immediate domestic needs while enhancing the U.S. global influence. The integration of the COP29 Summit outcomes and U.S. congressional energy initiatives provides a blueprint for navigating the complexities of the evolving global energy landscape. By focusing on innovation, partnerships, and resilience, the U.S. can simultaneously address domestic challenges and maintain its leadership role in the face of BRICS' growing prominence. This balanced strategy underscores the potential for proactive and cooperative solutions in a time of global transition. The expansion of BRICS presents both challenges and opportunities for Western economies, necessitating strategic adaptation to maintain relevance and competitiveness in a multipolar world. Proactively addressing these shifts through targeted strategies is crucial for mitigating risk and leveraging potential advantages. The increasing cohesion within BRICS could lead to strengthened intra-block trade, potentially limiting Western access to vital markets. To counterbalance this, the EU and the US should actively diversify their trade networks by engaging with emerging markets in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. These regions present untapped potential for growth and collaboration, offering alternative sources of raw materials, manufacturing capabilities, and consumer bases. By establishing mutually beneficial trade agreements, Western economies can reduce over-reliance on BRICS nations and build resilient supply chains that are less vulnerable to geopolitical disruptions. To remain competitive, the EU and US must prioritize investments in research and development, particularly in advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and sustainable manufacturing. Innovation in these areas not only drives economic growth, but also positions Western economies as leaders in industries critical to the global future. For instance, the transition to green energy provides opportunities for technological leadership, reducing dependency on BRICS for energy-related imports. Governments should incentivize private sector innovation through grants, tax benefits, and public-private partnerships to accelerate progress. While competition with BRICS is inevitable, collaboration on shared global challenges such as climate change, public health, and energy security can foster constructive engagement. Multilateral initiatives that bring together Western nations, BRICS members, and other global players can promote dialogue and reduce tensions. For example, co-investing in green energy projects or technology sharing agreements could benefit all parties while addressing pressing global issues. By demonstrating leadership in cooperative efforts, Western countries can maintain influence in international decision-making. In addition to external strategies, Western economies should focus on bolstering internal resilience. This includes reshoring critical industries to reduce dependence on foreign imports and investing in workforce development to meet the demands of high-tech industries. Enhancing infrastructure such as transportation and digital connectivity can further support economic growth and competitiveness. The rise of BRICS signals a growing demand for equitable representation in global governance. Western nations should advocate for reforms in international institutions like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization to reflect the changing dynamics of global power. By supporting more inclusive frameworks, the EU and the US can build goodwill with emerging economies and reduce the appeal of alternative alliances like BRICS. So what is there for the US economy and strategy? Well, to ensure that the expansion of BRICS and the shift in global alliances do not adversely impact the United States' living standards and business development, the US must adopt a multifaceted strategy rooted in resilience, innovation, and global leadership. The following steps could form the cornerstone of this approach. The US should prioritize restoring critical industries and developing regional supply chains with trusted allies. This includes incentivizing investments in sectors like semiconductors, green technologies, and advanced manufacturing, reducing reliance on imports from BRICS nations while creating jobs and fostering economic independence. By doubling down on research and development, the US can secure its competitive edge in key areas such as artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and biotechnology. Federal support for innovation hubs and public-private partnerships can drive breakthroughs that underpin long-term economic growth, and this is one of the crucial factors. We need help from governmental funds and incentives to develop what is needed so we reduce our dependency on import. Diversifying trade relationships beyond BRICS countries is critical. Strengthening ties with emerging markets in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, alongside existing alliances with Europe and Japan, can provide alternative sources for imports and new export opportunities. Education and workforce development must align with future industries. Upskilling the labor force in high-demand fields like renewable energy, AI, and cybersecurity will ensure a competitive and adaptable workforce. While competition is inevitable, engagement with BRICS members on shared interests such as climate change and global health can prevent tensions and open pathways for collaboration. Constructive diplomacy can reduce the risks of economic isolation and ensure mutual benefits in a multipolar world. By focusing on these strategies, the US can not only mitigate the challenges posed by the expanding BRICS alliance, but also position itself as a resilient and forward-looking global leader. This proactive approach will safeguard living standards, drive sustainable business development, and ensure the nation's continued prosperity in a rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. The expansion of BRICS marks a profound and potentially transformative shift in global alliances. The inclusion of nations like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, countries with strategic, economic, and geographic advantages, signifies a growing consolidation of power among emerging economies. This trend reflects a collective ambition to rebalance the global order, reducing dependence on Western-dominated systems and advocating for a more multipolar world. Such a shift has significant implications for Western economies, particularly for the EU and the US, whose reliance on imports from Asia and developing regions underscores their economic vulnerabilities. For Western nations, this evolving geopolitical landscape presents challenges but also opportunities. The risk of supply chain disruptions and reduced export demand must be met with decisive actions, including reshoring critical industries, diversifying trade partners, and investing in technological innovation. Simultaneously, the growing influence of BRICS in global governance structures demands a strategic recalibration of diplomatic and economic policy. Collaborative engagement with BRICS on shared challenges such as climate change, energy security, and technological advancement can mitigate potential adversities while fostering a more interconnected global economy. As BRICS continues to expand and assert its influence, the EU and the US must leverage their strengths in innovation, governance, and institutional cohesion. By embracing adaptability and resilience, Western economies can maintain their relevance and leadership in an increasingly multipolar world. Ultimately, the future of global stability and prosperity lies in cooperation and shared growth, requiring all nations, regardless of alliance, to prioritize dialogue, mutual respect, and collective progress. The challenge for Western countries is not merely to adapt, but to thrive by leading a new wave of inclusive and sustainable globalization. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Q in Charge. I hope you enjoyed our exploration of this fascinating and ever-evolving topic. There's so much more to uncover, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let's keep the conversation going. If you found today's discussion intriguing, don't forget to subscribe to Q in Charge wherever you get your podcast. Share this episode with your friends, family, and colleagues because great conversations deserve to be heard. And of course, hit that like button and leave us a review. It really helps us reach more curious minds like yours. Until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, and remember, change starts with a single charge. I'm Joe the Q, and you've been listening to Q in Charge. See you soon.